Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation. I've got my mate Peter Wicks from wixxyleaks. How are you, mate?
Good, yourself?
Good, good. We are doing another episode of Great Debut Albums Part 2, covering maybe some debut albums that don't get the accolades they deserve, maybe an established artist that forms a band, and that may be classified as a debut album. So we're going to pick 5 each, going to do round robin. Pete, what's your first one? Great debut albums.
Well, all right. I was going to do one, which I won't do, but I'll mention it anyway. And I was going to do NWA, Straight Outta Compton, because it's not just a debut of NWA, obviously. It's also a debut for Dre, who's probably the biggest one of the biggest recording artists in the world at the moment, and Ice Cube. But anyway, I won't do it. See the movie. It's all in the movie. So I'll go for something else that's a bit hard-hitting. Rammstein. I know it's a wormhole you haven't been down yet, Pete, but once you're in there, you can't help but stay in there. So their first album, I won't even try and pronounce too many of the names. Herzlide, I think it's called, or Herzlide. That's their first album. Absolutely brilliant. When you listen to it, it's got a familiar feel to it because it's not. It's got the same like tone, if you like, of a Ministry or like a 9 Inch Nails, like something along those lines, because of the industrial nature of it. However, they do have their own sound. Like and it's not just the vocals. There's distinct Rammstein sound. So anyway, this came out in 1995, and it's interesting because they had a bit of trouble getting picked up in the States. The record companies didn't think something that was sung in German was ever gonna work. So they sort of came to fame in the States and here through the soundtrack for Lost Highway, which Trent Reznor put together. And it had 2 tracks on it. It had Hire to Mish and the song Rammstein. And I think people were just blown away by just the sound. And Till Lindemann, the singer, he's just got the most, I don't know, he's just got the most amazing voice. It's very, very hard hitting. If you had to pick like the leading front men or front people in bands, Till Lindemann would be right up there. He's just got an air about him and an authority about him, and vocal range is fantastic. And so anyway, also their live shows are pretty amazing. Another thing about Till Lindemann that people might not know, when they early on in their career, he was advertising a vegan product, fake meat. So it was called Like Meat, and he was doing ads. He was also supposed to be in the Olympic swim team for Germany, but he was booted out of the team after some, and I don't know what it was, but some goings on in the Italian tour. So I gather he sort of went a bit off campus and did some of the things that you'd probably expect a rock star to do before he was a rock star. But anyway, so he got booted off the team. But so the band's name comes from an airport where there was a massive disaster, which killed 3 pilots and 67 spectators, I believe. And that's where they get their name from. But as an album, it's a fantastic introduction to probably one of the biggest touring bands around at the moment. I hope they get over here, and if they come over here, I hope they bring their full show. But check it out, Rammstein's first one, Herzlide.
Great start, Pete. Great start. No, I'm not really familiar with Rammstein, but they are on my list to explore, and I've heard so much about them, especially with the light show. So I've seen snippets of it, and flamethrowers, fireworks. It's just absolutely full on. So I'm looking forward to getting down that rabbit hole. And there are simply some bands that just pass you by, and you've got to just set aside some time, and that's on my list that I definitely want to explore their catalogue. So
I think stage show wise, it's like there was Kiss and there was Alice Cooper as far as big shows, and at the moment it's Rammstein. It's
Yeah. All right, a little bit of a change of pace. So my first album was a one-off and done group. So you had a guy called Pat Frowell, who's a guitar hero. He was in the Pat Travers band. Glenn Hughes, who was the bass player in Deep Purple, previous to that, Trapeze. They met, their paths crossed in the early 80s, and they put together this little masterpiece called Hughes and Frowell. And yeah, look, this album is just magnificent. It didn't sell, it stiffed, but it's one of those ones that has acquired cult status, critical acclaim. It was produced by Andy John, and Andy John is a producer extraordinaire, Led Zeppelin, Free, The Stones. How would I describe it? I describe it hard rock, funk, post-punk, and a little bit of new wave. And it's just absolutely sensational. The songs, Hold Out Your Life, Coast to Coast, Muscle and Blood. Glenn Hughes is just singing if his life depended on it. They call him the voice of rock, and he's got that wonderful soul voice, but he's absolutely just, his voice is soaring. And Pat Frowell's guitar work is just to die of. He's just got this fantastic tone. And Hold Out Your Life, it's probably one of my favorite guitar solos in any rock music committed to tape. So this album is a drug album, unfortunately. They were both heavily into coke, and you can see, look at those coke eyes. And if you want to see more, look at the video clips, and they've got that sort of gaze look about them. And they unfortunately didn't tour because they were going through really severe drug addiction, and that's why this whole outfit
didn't get through customs.
Yeah, well, it didn't really continue on. They did a few gigs supporting Santana, and then it just sort of folded up. And there was always a rumor that they would do a Hughes and Frowell Part 2, but it never got around to doing it. But I think that in Glenn Hughes's discography, maybe Burn, and this is probably his high watermark of the career, but it's definitely, I think it's a hugely underrated album. It's a masterpiece, and it's classified as, in my book, as a debut because it was an outfit they put together, but it was a once and done. So that's 1982 Hughes and Frowell. If you like a little bit of funk, you like a little bit of hard rock, yeah, definitely check it out.
Can I just say that album cover, if you hold it up again, the picture on the top left, Jesus, that looks like Phil Collins' Face Value.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more look at the guys. Look at that. Yeah. That's what coke does to you guys.
And a good hairdryer.
Oh, absolutely. But it's just magnificent. Just you got to check it out.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I haven't heard it before.
Yep. Yeah. Alrighty. What's your next one?
Next one, it comes out of 1996. A band called the Eels. Beautiful Freak. It's. I know they're a pretty well known band. That was back in the days when they had Eve on vocals, obviously, the songwriter, and they also had Butch on drums. Now, on the albums, like they're not very heavily drum orientated, but let me tell you, when you see them live, Butch is one. He was one phenomenal drummer. Unfortunately, he's left the band now, but definitely one of the best drummers live I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot. He left to go tour with Tracy Chapman, I believe.
Okay. That's a change of pace.
It is a bit of a change of pace. But anyway, yeah, Beautiful Freaks, the album. The songs most people will probably know would be Susan's House, Novocaine for the Soul. The clip for Novocaine for the Soul is just phenomenal. I don't know if you've seen it. It just sort of starts off in this alley, and then the song kicks in, and they all start floating around in the.
I think I have this. Yes,
yeah. Fantastic clip. The other, it's subject matter wise, it's quite gloomy. It's not exactly a cheery album. It's not one you're going to put on when you want to be cheered up. But and one of the inside the sleeve, there's a picture. unfortunately, I haven't got it on me, but there's a picture of them all like, like they're all miserable and like that. And so it looks like they're taking the piss and, it's all a bit of a joke. But his life at the time was just anything but a joke. He's basically writing from the heart. He's able to take the piss out of himself a bit, but it's definitely from the heart. And if you want to know a bit of history about it, there's a book called Things the Grandchildren Should Know, which he wrote. It's a biography, fantastic book. It gives you a real insight into all their work, and highly recommended. But yeah, so anyway, best songs: Nova Came to Soul, Susan's House, and Flower. It's fantastic album, definitely one of my all-time faves. Actually, their second album, Electroshock Blues, is probably in my top 3 favourite albums. But for debut albums, Beautiful Freak, Eels, check it out.
Absolutely. All right, next one. We're going back in time to 1983, the genre of heavy metal. So this artist has had, a lot of artists have one high water mark. This one had 3 high water marks in his career. As the lead singer of Rainbow with Rainbow Rising, as the lead singer of Black Sabbath with Heaven and Hell, and as the lead singer of the self-titled band Dio, Holy Diver. And I think this is heavy metal at its most purest. This album cover scared me when I was a young kid, but now I've come to realize as an adult, and, read lots of interviews with Dio, who's the monster here? Is it the monster or is it actually the priest? And it covers all those sort of topics that heavy metal or gothic metal love to cover, and that is good versus evil, hypocrisy of religion, light and shade, dark and light. And that's always been the lyrical content of Dio. So Dio was very much into the fantasy and Lord of the Rings, but for this album, he simplified it and made it more sort of with real observation, simplified it to make it more broadly appealing to that heavy metal audience. And I think he's one of his finest. It's pure heavy metal. And I think the band was just sensational. So you had Vivian Campbell,
yeah.
Brought him into the band, and he is a guitar hero. And I don't think he has ever played as well as on that album, or maybe at a pinch, The Last in Line. And he's just slumming it in Def Leppard. I'm sorry, I've seen Def Leppard a few times, and he's just playing chords and getting paid. That album he was just a true sort of guitar hero. And, the lead breaks, he was just taking it really angular directions that you wouldn't expect. Because, Peter, we're into heavy metal. I met you in that scene. And there are some songs, how it's going to end. Yeah. It's so predictable, cliche. But this guy, he would take, a chord change that you wouldn't expect, do a run that is just totally sort of outward. So Jimmy Bain on bass and Vinny Appice on drums. It was all recorded in Sound City, which Dave Grohl did a wonderful documentary. It just sounds fresh. It sounds alive. I love the songs on the album. So, Stand Up and Shout, Holy Diver, which has been played in a TV commercial, given it a whole lease of life in Australia. Rainbow in the Dark, that's just to name a couple, but I just think it just jumps off the page, and it's a great album, and it's really just pure heavy metal. It's melodic, and it's one of the greatest heavy metal albums out there. And Dio, Holy Diver, that's my pick as a great debut album.
Totally agree. Like I grew up on that album. That was one of my favourite albums when I was younger. You and I actually went and met Ronnie James.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And he is so down to earth.
Nice guy, yeah.
I bloody probably sort of hijacked the conversation a little bit. I had to, he had this big Pacific Islander bounce, and he said, "Okay, that's enough, son. push me out of the way.
And he was like, "Get out of it, mate. We're having a conversation here." Yeah.
But that was great. And we were so starved for seeing heavy metal in Australia, and it was just to see that band at the Sydney Entertainment Centre was just like everybody that had any sort of relationship with heavy metal was at that show, and it was good that they probably made a loss because it was very expensive for big bands to come to Australia.
Yeah, Maiden used to come all the time and take a hit because they had the big stage show to go with it. But
and they have paid in spades because they've got that cross-generational audience.
That's right.
And and people have repaid the faith by Maiden coming back. And Dio was one of those few acts that included Australia as part of the itinerary. All the other acts, they sort of too expensive, too far away. But anyway, that album has just been recently remixed, and it's as fresh as a daisy as when you first listen to it. It holds up really well.
Yeah, no, great.
And a lot of metal doesn't hold up.
A lot of metal comes. Yeah, you listen to a lot of the metal these days, or from back in those days, and you just listen to the lyrics and you think, God, you wouldn't get away with that now. It's very dated. It's
very dated.
Yeah,
but that one doesn't date.
That one's a cracker. Yeah.
Yep.
That one's just scorcher. All right, my next one is English band, Placebo. Most people have probably heard of them.
I was expecting this.
What
are your favourites?
96. They're one of those bands that you either love them or you hate them. I don't know. I don't know if you'd hate them, but I think they're the singer Brian Molko. He can be quite a divisive character. People don't like him because he's very, very camp and whatnot. But God, that guy's fantastic. Like, what a voice. Last time I saw him, he had laryngitis, and it was at the Margaret Court Arena. And they did a big thing about Margaret Court too, because she's so outspoken about gays. But yeah, he had laryngitis, but you just couldn't pick it. He warned us right from the start. But anyway, their first album, the cover is another one of those children who's tried to have a lawsuit against the band for using their image. Where were the parents? But anyway, so yeah, Placebo's three guys. Back in those days, it was Brian Molko, Stefan Olsdale, and Steve Hewitt on drums. Steve's no longer with them. It's just got a real energy about the album. My favourite tracks on it are Bruce Pristine, Nancy Boy, which is one of their big singles back then, and they were the two big songs that single-wise, or Teen Angst as well. But live, Bionic, the song they do called Bionic, and live, that song just absolutely kicks. They don't seem to do it anymore, but God, that song just absolutely floored the place live, and the mosh pit would go off. So totally unique vocal style, and music-wise, there's a bit of a Cure feel, like the old Cure to some of their songs, just the way the rhythms go, the guitar plays.
Bowie. Definitely David Bowie and Bowie and T-Rex.
Yeah.
Glam.
Very, very glam feel, and but just a fantastic album. It's just it really, really does rock. They don't do that much of it live anymore, unfortunately, which is a real shame. But yeah, it's a fantastic album. It's
that's a great pick, and I really like them a lot. And they were definitely waving the Bowie T-Rex sort of flag, very 70s glam. I haven't heard that much from them lately. Are they still are they defunct, or they're going strong?
No. They put out an album about about 4 months ago.
Right.
Great
okay.
Album. Awesome album. Definitely one to get. But it's a quite a departure from their Loud Like Love. I wouldn't say it's still distinctly Placebo, although it is a new style. Also when you look for Brian, he's got a moustache and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely worth checking out their new album.
Absolutely. I mean, Brian's got one of the most distinctive vocals, and I know a lot of people either like him or hate him, but I love his vocals. I think in that sort of soundscape, it fits like a glove. No, that's a great pick. Good stuff. All right, I'm a little bit of change in pace. I'm going to go further back in 1979, and this band popped out of nowhere. They're good fun. They've got a bit of a party vibe. How would I describe them? I would describe them as new wave. They came from Athens, Georgia in the US, and I'm talking about the B-52s, the self-titled album. I think this is a little classic. And this album actually went off in Australia before the rest of the world.
Really?
It went top 7. Rock Lobster went top 10, and the rest of the world took a little bit of time to sort of get on the B-52s train. I think it was the second album that actually made them a little bit more bigger in America. But you got, how would I describe them? I would describe them as a patache of 50s, 60s pop with trash culture. So they're sort of culture vultures in regards to their lyrics. You've got two singers that sing, it's like a cross between the Shangri-Las and Yoko Ono, a little bit atonal. And then you've got this Fred Schneider who does this sort of monotonic vocal rapping. And with this sort of like garage poppy power pop type sound, and it just makes it purely infectious. And this album is the sweet spot. Starts off with Planet Claire, 52 Girls, but Rock Lobster, I love that song. And apparently they were John Lennon's one of their favorite B-52s were one of his favorite bands. And when he heard Rock Lobster and heard the girls doing that Yoko Ono, he turned around to Yoko and said, "Yoko, back to work." And that's when he recorded, inspired him to get into the studio and put down Double Fantasy. He loved them. But yeah, I think the legend of the B-52s was definitely in this album. They're one of those bands, as the discography went on, they became a little bit less interesting, unfortunately. So sorry, Love Shack and even later stuff, I think they became everything that was sparkly and original became a little bit sort of smoothed out and, homogenized.
They had a real 50s milk bar kind of feel.
Yeah.
Like something like a Happy Days type thing. I don't know. It's funny the vocal style, and you'll probably get hate mail over this, but Talking Heads, I think, borrowed a lot of the vocal style from.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know about the timing. Talking Heads came out in 77. They came out in 79. I'm not sure, but there's definitely Yoko Ono influence, and I love Yoko, and just one of those things. I love that avant-garde type of music, and they really were a sponge. But when I think of Rock Lobster, I could imagine Maxwell Smart in '99 just swinging. It's got that sort of retro feel to it.
Yeah,
I can imagine. Yeah, I could imagine Barbara Feldon and Don Adams just doing a bit of a shimmy. Anyway, B-52s, bit of a change of pace.
Yes, but definitely change of pace. So my next one is from 2014, so not that long ago. Royal Blood. I don't know if you know Royal Blood, but their debut album is simply called Royal Blood, funnily enough. So two guys, Mike Kerr, who does vocals and bass, and Ben Thatcher on the drums. And you'll note that there's no guitarist listed. Mike Kerr has an intricate amount of pedals, which he basically uses his bass and can mimic a guitar sound. So anyway, as far as the debut album goes, this one just blows it. Like, it's just totally nails it. They've got a real 90s metal feel to them. It's just hard-hitting stuff. When they came out, or when they started, people weren't sure whether they'd be picked up or whatnot. They really hit their straps when Matt Helders from the Arctic Monkeys wore a Royal Blood T-shirt
Right.
when he was playing Glastonbury, and everyone's suddenly like, who are they?
Yeah.
A bit like how a lot of people over here picked up on Faith No More when Metallica were wearing all the Faith No More shirts.
Sure.
So anyway, the best songs on there are Out of the Black, which is the opening track, and it is just an absolute scorcher of a track. I don't know if you know it, but it just absolutely smashes at the start. It's just excellent intro, and it sort of feels like it's a bit all over the place, and then it just kicks in with the rhythm, and it's, yeah. And 10 Ton Skeleton is the other track I really like off it. But, totally unique, been two-piece, and, just a real fantastic album. Just a great album. And I don't think they've matched up. They've had three albums, all of them great, but I don't think any of them equal the debut.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get that a lot with a lot of bands. They just, their first album is the finest. And when it comes to the sophomore or the third, it's not as good because they've basically got their whole artistic career on the line and they put everything into it. I'll check that one out. I have heard of them, but I have not,
It's funny because like that album, when you first hear it for the first time, it feels like you haven't heard it. It feels fresh but it still feels like a hark back to the 90s. But it feels new and exciting. So I suppose when the second album came out, which followed along the same lines, it lost that new feel because you've heard it similar before. So, but still great albums.
Oh, good stuff. Well, that's another one. I'll get the notebook out and write that down.
Third one's actually a change of style, so it's it's fantastic as well. It's more Muse-like.
Muse, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It's still distinctly Royal Blood, but you can hear. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Very good. I will definitely check that one out. So, going all different sort of time shifting at the moment, we're going to 2002, and at the start of the 2000s, there was a garage rock revival, and multiple bands. I think Rolling Stone magazine had the Vines on front and said "Rock is back." So you had the White Stripes, you had the Vines. Had multiple bands that were, plugging in guitars, and it was very sort of. People were getting away from the turntables and electronica and plugging into their Marshall stacks, and it was all looking very rosy. One band from New Zealand that really was in my opinion, along with the Vines, that was ahead of the pack, was a band called the Datsuns. And this is their self-titled debut from 2002. And it sort of picks up of the mythology of the Ramones, where all the band members had their surname Datsun. So you had Dolph Datsun, Christian Datsun, Matt Datsun, and Phil Datsun. The real names were Dolph DeBorst, Christian Livingston, Matt Osmert, and Phil Somerville. And their style of music was a cross between the classic rock of Cheap Trick, Deep Purple, Rush, Zeppelin, and a band that you may be familiar called Red Cross. So power pop, classic rock, garage rock, just a lot of fun. They played Ozfest. They played at the Big Day Out. I saw them in New Zealand. And they came on, I think from memory, they played a set just before the Strokes or Metallica, and for 30 minutes, I thought they were the best band in the world. They were sensational. So the big songs here were Harmonic Generator, MF from Hell, Sitting Pretty. I've seen them multiple times live. They just put on a great show, and it's just full-on guitar onslaught, but tongue-in-cheek. And, this album is definitely the one to check out. And if you like that garage rock revival of the early 2000s, I would say this is one of the best ones in that sort of era. Have you heard of the Datsuns?
I've got that album. It's a fantastic album. Harmonic Generator. What a bloody song that is. Jeez, that is just, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, when you said New Zealand, I thought I wasn't sure whether you were going to pick She Hat or the Datsuns, but that's a great pick.
But yeah, I just think in 2002 they were probably one of the best bands in the world live. Just 30 minutes
live. I wish I had.
Yeah,
Are they still going?
Yes, they are. I think they're based in Sweden. I think Dolph DeBorst lives in Sweden. They do the occasional tour. I don't think they've been around these parts for a long time.
The other
side, but they have got a bit of a following in the UK because this album went top 20 in the UK, and which is not too shabby. Yeah.
I thought only people in Australia and New Zealand.
No, they were really being pushed by NME magazine, which can be like an iron weight around your leg, because any band that NME usually pick up, the next album they usually throw them out.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So,
all right, there
you go.
Great pick. All right, well, my next one is one that probably a lot of people will be familiar with, Arctic Monkeys.
Love it.
Whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not, is the title. Nice long title. So anyway, this came out in 2006, and when it came out, it just felt so familiar but so unique. Like, it just sounded like if you go out a lot and go see a lot of pub bands, it just sounded like you'd stumble into a pub and you'd seen this band and it was just like, wow, awesome. They're like, fantastic band, but obviously you hadn't. So anyway, it's just had a real pub feel to it. The Arctic Monkeys, when they started out, and I don't know if this is true, but it's a rumor that they used to put USB drives and CDs. They used to go to gigs of bands that they liked, and they'd leave USB drives and CDs with their own music on it. So people would pick them up and go home, and word of mouth got out. And so that's how they got their name out there. It's the fastest selling British album from any band ever.
Yes.
Including the Beatles. So
yes, correct. Correct.
So like I said, it doesn't feel like it's anything new, but for the time it was. It was, so it sort of felt a bit retro-y, but it's not. But subject-wise for songs, it's just like, it's like being in your 20s again. It's just at a pub. It's just that sort of, brawls, birds, bounces. It's that. That's what it's all about, and it's
so many bangers on that album.
Oh, yeah, it's just, and they've never lived up to it since. Like, I mean, they've had some great.
They've had moments. They've had moments.
Had good moments, but nothing that feels like the first album. My favourite songs, Fake Tales of San Francisco, Still Take You Home, and Mardy Bum.
I bet you look good on the dance floor is just an absolute banger. I love that song.
That is a good song. It is, but it's even got a Duran Duran reference in it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but it ain't Camp Sand. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're spot on. I actually, when I joined the Contrarians, they had a show of one of the episodes was favorite songs or favorite albums of the 2000s, and I picked that album, and I just love it. I think it's just, the lyrics are witty.
Yeah.
Alex has got a maturity about his songwriting. Observational lyrics about social behavior, how young adults interact. It's just wonderful. And the music is just crushing. Yeah. And he loves Zeppelin. He loves Neil Young. He loves Bowie. And he's got basically all his parents' record collection is distilled into his influences, and it's through that album. And
there's not many artists out there that sing with an accent either. Yeah, he does it. He's got a distinct accent. So, the old Northern accent. It's
yes, 100%. I saw them at the Enmore. I saw them at the Enmore behind that tour, and I thought they were, my observation was, this is what the Beatles sounded like at the Cavern Club, because to me he kind of channels a bit of John Lennon. He's got he's got that alpha male, that sort of his delivery. I don't know. I had a really strong John Lennon vibe about him. I'm talking about John Lennon in the early Beatles, the early 60s. But they were fantastic.
Yeah. The album cover, which is also which is also pretty cool, is it came about. They paid one of their mates $70, went him out and got him smashed, and just took the photo during the night. A smashed mate. That's the cover with a fag hanging out.
I love it when you come up with these tidbits, mate. I love these little trivia things. Yeah. So that's his mate's ashtray on the back, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's I can't remember the name of the I can't remember the name of the pub that I'm talking to, but anyway, some pub in London. But
well, they're coming out. They're playing Sydney. They're doing the Domain, so they're a big draw card. So the Sydney Domain, that's going to be 20, 30,000. I think you could probably fit in those grounds. Yeah. So they're a big draw card. Yeah. Their last couple of albums were definitely different. Their last album was actually, you could borderline say it was piano ambient. So very far away. But to me, I like the purity of their first album because it's just pure rock.
Yeah.
Youthful energy.
Real garagey pub rock. And like totally unpolished.
Yes.
Like and I think that's where they lost it in later albums, is they had the same sound, but it was just polished and, no feedback, no distortion. It was just, Anyway, cracker on the album.
Great pick. All right. Well, I'm going to finish up the show with a one from 1994. And I think this album single-handedly paved the way for a lot of blokes to start singing in falsetto and pouring out their heart and having that sort of stream of consciousness type lyrics. This artist was only around very, very short time. It was one album that built his reputation. And again, Australia was the biggest market, and a lot of the other sort of markets like your US and UK sort of caught on. And I'm talking about Jeff Buckley Grace. So it's a sublime album, and you basically got this guy who just sings with his, he just bare emotion. And he's got this most beautiful falsetto or beautiful high register voice. And, everybody, Chris Martin and your Radioheads and everyone after that, I think, were listening or looking in the rear vision mirror at this particular album and, trying to change their songs in that sort of that type of musicology. I love this album. I love the directness with the lyrics. Really speaks from the heart. Grace is a great song. Last Goodbye. I mean, gee whiz, end of a relationship. It's pretty heartbreaking. And Hallelujah. I hate that song. Leonard Cohen, but he actually makes it compelling. I can't stand that song, but I only like it with the way he sings it. Lover, You Shouldn't Have Come Over. I think it's just a brilliant album, and it was basically on every one's turntable in 1994. It was just played everywhere, and I don't know. Maybe he's kind of disappeared off the cultural landscape. We don't talk about him as much. There are some albums that were kind of hot in the era. Yeah. But this album, I think, like in 2022, maybe we don't talk about it. It's sort of dissolved a bit off the cultural landscape. I don't know what your thoughts are on this one.
Well, my thoughts on this one, and I've got a confession to make. I haven't actually heard it. I know one song off it, and that's Hallelujah. And I know, it's unforgivable, I know. I suppose... I don't know why I haven't heard it, but to me it's the amount of hype that I heard about it. It was just nothing was ever going to live up to that amount of hype.
And I really, when he passed away, the legend, it's like anyone who dies young, James Dean, Kurt Cobain, the legend is cemented.
That's right.
And the guy only did one album, and there were subsequent albums that were put out, but they were posthumous. And basically, they were sort of offcuts from the vaults that were probably not going to be even on an album. But truly, this is his debut. This is his one album, and tragically passing away, the legend has been born. Well, but I just think in 2020, it's sort of a little bit off the off the radar a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I do still hear, but it's mostly the Hallelujah song that you hear it being played on the TV or something. It's I think I don't know that much about him, but I understand one of his last gigs was at a venue where for me with Selena's at Coogee Bay, and I think that concert is just a concert of legend. It's like,
yes,
I heard so much about it, and everybody that went to that concert says it was like one of the best experiences of their life. So
yes,
like I said, there was just so much hype that I thought if I listen to it, I'm going to end up disappointed because it won't live up to all this huge hype that was around it. But I will, now the hype's died down a bit, maybe I should go back and have another.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, there was, that's another topic we need to talk about maybe down the track. There a lot of albums that had a lot of hype and were big things in the early 90s, for example. And, you know, when the dust settles, you know, like in 2022, they're kind of forgotten. Like another one that just comes to mind that was very hyped at the time was Alanis Morissette. We don't really, I mean, I know she's got a musical, park that to the side, but it's not really a cross-generational artist. I don't think a lot of kids have just said, hey, I was influenced by Alanis Morissette. But that album, you know, that sold like by the bucket load. It's probably diamond certification in America, but it sort of, you know, her subsequent albums didn't do so well. And it's sort of, it doesn't really have a lot of cultural significance. Like a Fleetwood Mac or a Beatles or anything like that, you know what I mean?
Well, that album, Alanis Morissette album, that was going to be one of the ones on my list, but I looked it up and discovered it wasn't actually a debut. She did have another album before that I didn't know about. But
Country.
That was her first major label debut.
Oh yeah,
but not debut. So
it's good to do research because I was going to do Bjork. And then I found that she did a recording under the name Bjork when she was 13. So, and her album, this is the one that I was going to pick. It's actually called Debut. Was not actually her debut. So it's good. You've got to do your research.
Just don't believe everything you read on the packaging.
No. Anyway.
Yeah.
This is good. It was good to catch up. We should do this again. So please tell us, viewers, what you think of the show. Please like and subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Tell us what your favorite debut albums are. As you can see, we've just gone all different genres, some well-known, some not well-known, all different decades. It's just a free for all type show. We will do this again and catch you soon. See ya.
Thank you.